Well, hello, and welcome to Japan Realized, my new channel about the real experience of moving and living in Japan. I'll be talking here about all the things that are different between the United States and Japan, along with all the stuff you probably expect, like music, video games, and anime. If it's something that exists in real-life Japan, it's fair game. But this isn't going to be fanboyism or TikTok content. This is real life from the perspective of a Westerner just trying to keep his head from exploding on a daily basis. I know I'm not the first to do this, but hopefully I'll have a unique enough perspective to make it interesting. And there's a lot of stuff I just want to talk about, even if nobody's watching. So a little about me, and I promise this is the only time you'll hear this. I'm a native New Yorker, most recently by way of Arizona, and I used to be a pilot for a major airline that operates throughout the Western Hemisphere. I may or may not do that again someday, but that's a topic for another time and place. I may mention aviation topics now and then here, or make stupid dad aviation jokes, but it's not the focus of this channel. I've also had another YouTube channel called Modern Classic for about 10 years, where I cover all sorts of retro and other technology. Check it out if you feel like it. Those of you who do know me from there may recognize that this video looks a little different from most, and that's because I'm shooting this on my iPhone again. I'm still waiting for my stuff to arrive from the United States. I'll talk more about that in a minute. My first visit to Japan was for the 2000 Tokyo Game Show, which I covered as a writer for my job at the time. I'm interrupting myself here because my first visit was actually for Nintendo's Space World that same year, where they introduced the GameCube and promoted the upcoming Game Boy Advance. The two shows were literally a couple months apart, and I did go to both, so I'm not surprised I mixed them up in my head, and it doesn't change what I'm about to say next. It was a life-changing experience. My girlfriend was Japanese, and still is, although she's my wife now, not my girlfriend, so I also felt like I gained a new understanding of her through that experience too. I instantly wanted to move to Japan, although I was really just a kid back then, so what did I know? I was really into Japanese pop culture, though I had no real idea of what living in the country was actually like. For most of the next couple decades, I'd visit once or twice a year for both business and pleasure, as well as visiting my in-laws and doing regular Japanese family stuff, which it turns out isn't much different from American family stuff. My wife and I ended up running a store in New York City that sold Japanese clothes for a while, which we imported from the real brands in Japan. That's not the kind of thing most Westerners who move to Japan can say they've done. Over time, I started to think I had a pretty good handle on how this country works. And in some ways I did. I learned a lot over those 25 years, and I think having so many different experiences here has definitely helped me adjust. Without at least some of that, it would be difficult living here without going through a lot more culture shock than I'm already experiencing. But moving here has been different in ways that visiting, even visiting for decades, never really prepares you for. And that's going to be a big part, and maybe even the main part, of what this channel is all about. So let me start by telling you about my experience actually moving here. I've been here now for about 6 weeks, and things are just starting to settle down enough for me to write this script and film it. First, I know some will ask why I moved here now when I could have just kept visiting once a year and eaten all the ramen in Arizona forever instead. Well, I don't want to get too deeply into it, except to say that there's a question I heard once that got stuck in my head, and I feel like I first heard this on the TV show Fringe or something, but the question is, would you ever have guessed 5 years ago that you'd be where you are right now? It's sort of the flip side of that job interview question about where you see yourself in 5 years. But I can honestly tell you that at literally any time of my life, up to and including now, the answer to that question would be no. Life is just one surprise after another, and you really can't plan it. So while sure, there are specific reasons why my wife and I moved here when we did, the larger answer is that life is just way more random than I ever thought it was when I was younger, and things are constantly changing. I learned to embrace that randomness long ago and just work with what I've got. So TLDR, moving here was just the right thing for us right now. You should know off the bat that moving overseas is really, really expensive. And the costs go up as you get older and have more stuff, along with expectations of how you want to live your life. When you're young, sure, just dump everything and come over and live in hostels or whatever for a while. You'll get sick of it pretty quick, and that's just a part of life that pushes you to make things better over time. But some people do actually do that for a while. But as a middle-aged couple, the expenses increase exponentially unless you're willing to go back in time and live like you did when you were 19, when you were probably eating cereal for dinner every night and using your phone as a TV. I've already been through that. I don't need to do it again. I don't want to say exactly what we've spent on this move, and I'm not sure I even really know the exact number, but it's a lot. Meanwhile, we still don't have a fully furnished house, and we're having to rebuy a lot of the stuff we already had in America, usually at a price premium. Our old stuff was used, obviously, so even things we sold cost extra to replace. So it's still a lot like starting over, no matter what you do. Actually, getting here is at least a 3-part process, and while that may not sound like a lot, there are 3 pretty big parts. The first is getting a visa. Since my wife is Japanese, I'm going to be on a spousal visa. Just like the United States, you can establish residency through marriage in Japan. Another common way to do it is with a work visa, but if you're thinking about this, just keep in mind that you have to already have a job in Japan to do it, and the company you're working for needs to be willing to sponsor you. That said, if those conditions are met, it's usually pretty easy because your company does a lot of the work for you. But don't think you're going to come here and then find a job and an employer to sponsor you. It doesn't work that way. A spousal visa is different because you're on your own navigating the complicated Japanese entry requirements. I wish we'd gotten an immigration lawyer from the beginning, but instead we did everything ourselves. This involves first getting a certificate of eligibility, which needs to be done by someone who already lives in Japan. That meant my in-laws ended up doing a lot of it, and they actually sponsored my application. There's a lot of paperwork that needs to be gathered to get that COE, and it takes a really long time to get it. As I write this, I'm still waiting, and am in Japan on the standard 90-day visitor pass, meaning once I get that COE, I will need to leave Japan, apply for the actual visa from another country, wait a few days to get it, and then re-enter Japan. If I don't get it in time, I just have to go back to America and wait until I do. Maybe stay at an Airbnb or something. While all this was and still is going on, we started on parts 2 and 3, which are finding a place to live in Japan and getting out of the place we currently lived in the United States. For part 2, I'm going to save you guys a lot of trouble and just tell you straight off the bat to contact the realtor eheya.net, which is confusingly located at global-eheya.net/en/index.html. If you go to any other URL, you'll never get there. This is not any kind of paid ad, but they just came to our rescue when it looked like we'd wasted a trip to Japan to look at houses. And they've been really helpful and nice throughout the process, which a lot of Japanese brokers are not when it comes to foreigners. And since my wife was no longer registered as a Japanese resident, she was considered a foreigner too. We had actually made a trip here just to look at places to live. We'd been turned down flat by a couple of brokers and were starting to think it was hopeless. See, Japan is not particularly friendly to foreigners right now. They're having their own little anti-immigration movement, despite an actively declining population that needs workers from overseas. It can be difficult to find anyone willing to rent an apartment or house to foreigners even in the best of times, and these are probably not the best of times for foreigners in Japan. But eheya found us a few places to look at and convinced the management company on the last day we were there to let us have the house we applied for. We actually found out while we were on the plane back to the United States. You don't have to actually go to Japan to do this. Apparently the entire process can be done online. But then you don't actually get to see where you're going to live in person or get a sense of the area around it. I always think it's better to do things face to face, but it's not actually required, and I know a lot of people probably couldn't afford it. I will say that there are certain things that we had to do in person for my certificate of eligibility as well, so it was still a good idea to make the trip regardless. We ended up with a 3-story new construction rental house that's 100 square meters, which is big for Japan, but quite a bit smaller than our house in Arizona, which was about the size of 800 javelinas, or 28.5 Mercor XR4 Ti's. So I still don't know how we're going to fit all our stuff in here when it arrives. Which brings me to another point, movers. When you move overseas, you're not just dealing with a standard moving company. You're instead dealing with an actual shipping company, as in ships on the water.
Ships, am I right?
They may call themselves movers, but what they're doing is contracting out to local moving companies at your origin and destination, and in between buying space in a shipping container on a container ship for you. They price by the container volume, not generally by weight like local movers do. So if you have 1,000 cubic feet of marshmallow fluff to transport, that's going to cost you more than 500 cubic feet worth of 30 weight ball bearings.
What the hell you need ball bearings for?
Oh, come on, guys. It's so simple. Maybe you need a refresher course. Hey, it's all ball bearings nowadays.
They are really just a middleman who coordinates things, but in this case, there is really no way to do all of that yourself, including customs clearance and insurance and things like that. So you want that middleman to take care of it all for you. Obviously, when moving by ship, though, it takes a while for your stuff to get anywhere. In our case, the total time is about 3 months, although that's only about a month and a half after we actually got here. We do at least know the date it's supposed to arrive, although ships can be late. Our ship has already been delayed 1 week for weather and another week for port congestion. I think it's just sitting outside the port right now. In the meantime, we kept only what we thought we'd need to get by, and in fact, we're kind of living like hobos right now. We arrived with 5 total suitcases, which seemed like a lot when we were pushing them around, but now that we're actually in our house, we're constantly having to buy basic supplies that we're either missing or forgot. As for part 3, that really depends on your living situation to begin with. We owned a house, and obviously selling a house is a pretty big deal. It takes a while, there's a lot of effort and stress involved, and you may or may not even be able to do it by the time you want or need to. You may need to come up with a contingency plan, and you may not get as much out of the sale as you had planned. For us, we luckily netted about what we had originally hoped, and we sold our house right around the time we considered our absolute deadline. But it was dicey for a while, and it was a lot of work. Many open houses, many showings, and lots of time living in a house we had to pretend we weren't living in. Doing everything simultaneously is a really big job. We also have a dog, and that's almost another part in itself. This may vary from country to country, but in Japan, bringing in a pet is almost like bringing in a person. They're treated almost like any other immigrant, except you have to do all the work for them. My wife kept an actual binder of paperwork required for our dog, which includes documentation of all the necessary vaccinations and tests, applications for the management company for our house, as well as the Japanese immigration authorities, etc. My wife asked me to point out that this is actually just her. Not everyone needs this binder. You really just need one form to get into the country with a pet, but there's still a lot of stuff you need to do in advance, including vaccinations and tests. And then it all needs to go through some kind of government approval process with an official stamp and all kinds of other weirdness. I don't even know. She kind of handled all of that. I was pretty worried about bringing the dog over because I'll let you in on a little secret about pilots. We are generally not in favor of pets on airplanes. But I also knew that our dog would 100% die of a heart attack if she had to ride in the cargo hold. She's a Chihuahua Terrier mix, and she's just an extremely nervous dog in general. She starts shaking uncontrollably, even just riding in a car. So I was a little torn between doing right by our dog and not annoying every other passenger on the airplane, but in the end, she is family, so she was going to ride with us if at all possible. I mean, it's just one flight. Of course, that's probably true for most people bringing their pets on planes. So pro tip, we ended up booking Delta because they allow pets in the cabin if they can fit in a carrier under the seat. We bought an extra seat too, just so we'd have a whole row and wouldn't be bothering another person sitting next to us. That turned out to be a great idea because even with sedation, our dog was only calm when in the carrier on the seat next to us, which we were allowed to do while at cruise. Though thank God she never barked, which is something she has started to do more often with the stress of the move. And she went like 14 hours without peeing too, which I did not think was possible. She was really well behaved, but it was a pretty stressful flight all around, to be honest. In the end, we all made it to our new house, and that's where I'm recording this right now. It is a rental, and we do plan on buying something eventually, so this is somewhat of a temporary house. but we're here and we're living life in Japan. I'll talk more about the experiences of actually living that life in future videos, including setting up our house, differences between Japan and America that I never noticed as a visitor but sure do now, and things I thought were cute or interesting as an outsider but that can make things difficult or even annoying as a resident. If you've got a topic you'd like me to cover in the future, let me know in the comments down below, though I don't imagine I'm going to have a huge number of those for the first video. But otherwise, I've got a lot of stuff I'd love to talk about, so watch for more in the near future regardless. Until then, keep your head on the ground and your feet pointed to the sky. Bye-bye.